Residents Council meeting to order. And we will have our patriotic song led by Patsy Kicklighter, played by him. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is Betty Lou here? Oh, that's right. Okay. Patsy now will introduce our resident who's going to give our moment of reflection.
Betty Lou and Jimmy are enjoying their children, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren. So I told her I would do this for her today. Our speaker today is Martha Stewart, who has a BA in Education from the University of Mississippi, an MA in Education from the University of South Alabama, Master of Fine Arts from FSU in Theater Management. After moving to Tallahassee, she worked in many fields. Most of the time was spent in Arts Council management, and retired as the major gift fundraiser for the College of Education at FSU. The fund started after she retired, when she started the group called the Acting Up Players. She taught acting classes for seniors and founded a repertoire theater company called the Acting Up Players, where she was the executive and artistic director. And she is very pleased to say that it is still in operation even after she left. She came to Westminster Oaks She came to Tallahassee in 1997 and moved to Westminster Oaks in 2013. She's chair of the Westminster Oaks Players Committee, member of the Forum Board, the Dining Committee representing Oaks South, the Environmental Group, and the Westminster Oaks History Committee. Volunteer at Acorn Boutique. May I present to you Martha Stewart.
Thank you, Patsy, for that introduction. I do want to say that I've been living in Tallahassee since 1977, so I've been here a while. And I also want to thank Betty Lou, although I know she's not here, for inviting me to do this today. I'm very honored to be doing it. Well, I've heard so many fine presentations of words and thoughts of inspiration from our residents over the many months that we've been doing this. And so I was worried that I might not be able to present something to you that would be interesting and that would tell you a little bit about me. You know, I thought about words that have inspired me from the Bible, like John's, "Let not your heart be troubled." I've thought about words of inspiration and guidance from my mother, and one of the things she advised me was to get an education, because education is something that nobody can take away from you. And I thought about even that old childhood rhyme, "Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver, the other gold." However, today I'm going to tell you about the words of inspiration to me in an area that I'm very interested in and have been active in for most of my adult life. And that area is the governance of our wonderful country and the defense of our democracy and our Constitution. From our Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And from the 19th Amendment to our Constitution, which gave women the right to vote. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state because of sex. For most of my adult life, those words have inspired me and many others. I've marched and gathered to protest and support issues that I felt were important to our country. I've campaigned for candidates whom I felt would govern and work for the issues I was interested in, including candidate Marjorie Turnbull. I have walked door to door, stood on street corners and waved signs, phone banked, and the last few years I've been registering voters through the League of Women Voters here in Tallahassee, and I've written letters and postcards to get out the vote. So I have been very busy, and it's all been very rewarding to me. But I think the words that have been most inspirational for me through all these years have been those spoken by President John Kennedy in his inauguration. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. These words have been inspirational for me. I hope they will be inspirational for you too. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Is Dr. Katz here? Oh, good. I'm sorry I didn't see. I think you all know we are going to lose Dr. Katz, but he is here to introduce his replacement, and we are so thankful that he's here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for giving us a couple minutes. You're not losing me completely because I am moving back home to upstate New York in the middle of winter. Yes, you can ponder that. But I am, it's not official yet, but I'm going to be the Enterprise Medical Director for Westminster Communities of Florida for the whole organization. Basically a corporate medical director. It's part-time. A lot of it will be virtual, but I'll be keeping an eye on Westminster Oaks from the medical perspective and anything else. So I'm delighted. So I've been here for almost 8 years. It's been an incredible experience having to work with you all and the administration here and being able to provide care in our clinic and in the nursing home and assisted living. And we're just so grateful that the Department of Geriatrics at Florida State University that I represent has successfully recruited Dr. Ramdial, who I'm here to introduce, who will be basically seeing all of my patients here at Westminster. And she's just a great addition. She's an assistant professor of medicine at the College of Medicine. And I'll ask Dr. Ramdial to introduce herself so you can recognize her when you see her in the halls. So thank you again.
Hi, good afternoon. Just wanted to introduce myself, Dr. Savitri Ramdial. I'm glad to be here. I previously did do some rotations here during my residency at TMH, so I'm glad to be back serving this population. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Normally, Dr. Casey Rust, who has been practicing with us for the last 2 years, would also be here, but she has another commitment that you couldn't get out of. But Dr. Rust is now the medical director here at Westminster. And she's, like Dr. Ramdial, is a fellowship-trained geriatrician. So I feel really good having to leave with, you're in such good hands. So thank you again. We look forward to it.
I believe members of the council have read the minutes submitted by our secretary. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I will accept a motion to adopt the amendments. Moved by Jim Melton and seconded by Lanny Cardona. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Marvin Rubenstein is unable to be with us this afternoon. He does not have COVID, but he does have a cold, so he was not able to come. Are we putting is his report on the? What? Oh, I have it? Oh dear, that was a mistake. Okay. Oh, wow, it works. You just push a little arrow. Okay. Not, as we reviewed these in the briefing, really virtually nothing has changed since we have last had our meeting. Total income of $30,985 and expenses under revenue. We're at 81% of our fiscal year. And you can see these numbers. And we want to really give a shout out to the Acorn Boutique. And I think just recently they have done really some amazing things there in terms of bringing in revenues. And so we're grateful to them because I think, as you know, that is our major source of income. So are there any comments from the council about the financial report? Emily moves approval. Is there a second? Walter seconds. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? It passes. Joyce Toman, I think we have some new residents.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello. Yes, we are on. We have 4 couples today to introduce, and so I'm going to ask the first couple to stand. Tom and Marianne Vickers. They live on Diplomacy Circle. Tom and Marianne grew up in Miami and both graduated from St. Teresa High School. Mary graduated in education, and she taught in Miami. Meanwhile, Tom earned a BS degree in chemistry from Spring Hill College, where he also was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army. His Army service was deferred to permit him to earn a PhD in analytical chemistry from the University of Florida. After he completed that, they did move to Tallahassee eventually, and he joined the staff at FSU in the chemistry department. He retired as a professor emeritus after 37 years. They've raised 4 children and now have 9 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Their family reunions now number 27 people. Thank you. The Savanos, please stand, come around to the front. And the first thing I want to say is, I want to know where she got her glasses. Oh, I love her glasses. Bill was born in Wilmington, Delaware, and spent his youth in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. He moved to New York City in his teens and attended Mount Hermon and Oberlin College. He had a successful career as a musician, painter, writer, and subsequently professor at the University of North Carolina. Joan was raised in Massachusetts and attended Carnegie Mellon, which it was Carnegie Tech, and then went to University of Texas. She was a professor at the University of North Carolina and taught at the Sundance Labs for 30 years. She is known as the first woman director of the modern age in Hollywood. She has a career as an actress, director, and teacher, and they were both delighted to throw out their wool and fur and come to Westminster Oaks in Florida. And I need your glasses. Thank you. Okay, the Butsons. Butson? Butsine. Peter and Sally. They came to Tallahassee in 1973, where they raised their two daughters who graduated from Florida High. Peter's career began as an FSU campus minister and evolved into becoming executive director of Common Cause Florida and the Florida Mental Health Association. In 1984, he started a company called Southern Accent Computer Systems and later worked as a consultant for Advanced Solutions International, which purchased his business. Sally became a classroom teacher, adjunct professor, and researcher at FSU, and IBM consultant. She created a program which is called Project Child, and she has published several education books. Peter's hobbies include woodworking, so I'm sure he'll enjoy our basement woodworking group. And she's an avid golfer, plays piano and guitar. They love to travel with their grandchildren. And then the McCallums. Tom was raised in Petersburg, Virginia, and earned his BA in Government Foreign Affairs at the University of Virginia and his MA in Economics from LSU, where he and Linda met. He received his PhD in the Economics from the University of North Carolina. He taught 38 years, including having retired 3 times from FSU. Linda spent her formative years in New Orleans and attended LSU. She started her career in banking and worked for several banks, declaring she is not the reason that none of them are no longer in existence. They have traveled extensively, visited 47 countries on 5 continents, and have been to all 50 states, with Tom missing only Arkansas. And they have 3 sons who live all over the country and 6 grandchildren.
Joyce, thank you so much. Isn't it fun to hear about our new neighbors? It really is. Now, Marie, will you come up and present the proposed changes in the bylaws?
Thank you, Madam President and members of the council. The Bylaws Committee was appointed at the December meeting of the Residents' Council, and the 2 members are Linda Stavley and myself. We received a great input from both council members and past presidents, particularly Bob Parker. We presented the proposed changes last Tuesday at a called briefing meeting with the council. I'm not going to read all these changes to you, but there are 7 major changes, and I'll just highlight those quickly. In the bylaws, last year we changed from a 2-year to a 3-year term after experience and discussion. The bylaws are now reverting back to a 2-year term, and this will allow a lot more people to participate. We're keeping the 9 members on the bylaws. The second bylaws change is that the secretary and treasurer may either be voting or non-voting members. A third change in the bylaws is that standing committees will have a vice chair. And then in the standing rules, The council will have a Finance and Budget Committee and a Health Services Advisory Committee as standing committees. And of course, there will be other committees as needed. Another change in the standing rules is that the council may establish other policy committees, service committees, and ad hoc committees, and then residents may establish resident activity groups. This is what we do now, but the titles have been changed, consolidated, and organized. And lastly, for the next 2 years, the nominating committee may adjust the terms of office in order to accommodate this transition back from 3 years to 2 years. So at the end of this meeting, a copy of the current bylaws and the proposed changes will be in the library and hopefully very soon be posted on MyWLife at the resident council icon. Everybody will have a month to review the bylaws. At the February meeting, the Residents' Council will vote on the proposed changes. And if you have any questions, you may direct them to council members, to Linda, or to myself. And are there any questions now? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie and Linda. Doing bylaws is really a labor of love because it's kind of tedious and very detailed, but so important in terms of how well an organization functions. We're now going to have a report by the Ad Hoc Committee on Dempsey Mayo. This committee that has been chaired by Bob Parker and has, with the help of, well, I'll let you introduce your committee. Okay, how about that? They have worked so hard, and I can't tell you how much their credibility has meant to each and every one of us in working with the county, with the school system, individual commissioners, and they have developed a product that they're going to present to you today that will do us all proud. Bob?
I need this. I'm going to ask Marjorie to be my technical expert here if I get overwhelmed with moving things forward. Thank you very much, Marjorie. On March the 21st of last year, the council appointed a committee to identify traffic hazards on Dempsey Mayo Road. And may I suggest the council, if you want to turn your chairs around, it's going to be visual. Everybody's going to hopefully be trying to see the visuals rather than looking at me, because I'm going to be reading a script here to make it quick. Our committee was also asked to recommend solutions to eliminate or lessen any dangers that we found. I was appointed chair. The council appointed Bob Ballard, Dale Eaker, Al Osterhoff, Betty Ramsey, Mary Jane Robbins, and Terry Ward as members. Marjorie served as an ex officio capacity, and Darlene Osterhoff served as secretary. Copies of our full report, and this is going to only be a very, very brief summary today, maybe not brief enough for some of you, but the full report is posted on MyWLife in the Residents' Council section. Just go to the Residents' Council section and you'll see it listed, says Dempsey Mayo Road Traffic Report. If you want to get into the details and see the wonderful statistical work that Al Osterhoff did, there's some wonderful graphs in there that we will not have a chance to go through today, and it's very revealing. The committee identified 5 major and interrelated traffic issues. These are excessive speed of vehicles on Dempsey Mayo Road, the complex traffic patterns at Westminster Oaks main entrance, the vulnerability of pedestrians near the Dempsey Mayo Road, the legality of operating golf carts on public roads and sidewalks, and one of the things that spurred the committees to be the committee to be formed was the waiting queue that blocked our entrances and created many dangerous situations for folks waiting to enter W.T. Moore School. Let's look at the most important issue we have today, and that is speed. On this slide, the vehicle speed of 10 miles per hour is at the left, and 38 miles per hour is the right. The height and color of the bars represent the severity of injuries. As the height of the green bars in the figure illustrate, if a vehicle is going less than 20 miles per hour, if it hits a pedestrian, the injuries tend to be non-severe. We might survive. Above 35 miles per hour, shown by the red bars, the injuries usually are fatal. Golf cart users and bicyclists are just as vulnerable. Here's the bad news for those of us at Westminster Oaks. Seniors hit by a vehicle traveling at any speed are much more likely to be seriously or fatally injured than our younger people. At higher speeds, both drivers and pedestrians have less time to correct for errors. At higher speeds also, a driver's field of vision narrows dramatically. A driver is less likely to see a pedestrian approaching from the side. These are all conclusions based upon research that Al Osterhoff and the committee has done, widely published. In October, at our committee's request, Leon County Engineering Services measured the speed of every vehicle at 3 locations on Dempsey Mayo Road over a 3-day period during the work week. I want you to see what they found at one location. This is only at one location. This graph shows the speeds of vehicles northbound on Dempsey Mayo Road about 1/3 of a mile from our entrance. Time progresses from left to right. The red arrow on the left points to the beginning of measurements at noon on October the 18th. The arrow on the right points to the end of measurements 3 days later. The graph's height shows the number of vehicles that passed by each hour. The red arrow points at the 200 vehicle per hour level. The highest peaks show that more than 200 northbound vehicles passed this location that hour. The 3 black arrows point to midnight during the 72-hour period. Relatively few vehicles are on Dempsey Mayo Road at that time, and of course, even fewer later. A total of about 6,000 northbound vehicles passed by over the full 72-hour period. The committee's report discusses southbound traffic in detail in the full report, and actually it's more vehicles than that going south for some reason. Now concentrate on each color separately. The areas of blue color in each mountain range, I'll call them, represent the small percentage of vehicles going less than 35 miles an hour. That's no more than 5 miles per hour above the posted speed limit. Overall, as you can see, and this is graphically shown, more than 85% of the vehicles are going faster than 35 miles an hour. The orange, gray, and yellow show the number of vehicles going 35 to 50 miles an hour. Light blue and green, toward the top of the peaks there, show vehicles going 50 to 60 miles an hour. Dark blue at the top shows vehicles faster than 60 miles an hour. A few were clocked at 80 miles per hour. Vehicle speed on Dempsey Mayo was also measured closer to Westminster Oaks main entrance, within about 300 feet north and south of Meandering Way. Vehicles in this area typically had to slow down because of other vehicles turning into the school entrance and into Westminster Oaks, and because the 20-mile-per-hour school zone speed limit was activated. Although average speed is lower, the speed measurements show that some vehicles just do not slow down. On a typical day, 341 vehicles pass the entrance going faster than 40 miles an hour. 16 faster than 50 miles an hour, and some faster than 60 miles an hour. We've got a problem. This is a graphic drawing of the entrance, our main entrance. North is at the top. The main entrance to Meandering Way is to the right. The red lines show the various paths vehicles take within this complex. That's the vehicles. Traffic engineers use drawings like this to help evaluate the complexity of the intersection. Every place two lines touch, you see many of them here, or intersect is referred to as a conflict point where collision can occur. The blue lines show the paths presently taken by resident and staff golf carts. Golf carts in the mix further complicate this intersection because the golf carts are less likely to be seen by drivers of vehicles when they're traversing Dempsey Mayo Road. They further increase the number of conflict points within the intersection. Finally, the green lines show the paths of pedestrians. In addition to monitoring cross traffic and turning vehicles, drivers must also watch for pedestrians using the crosswalk. If the driver is speeding, the challenge increases enormously, in part because the driver is less likely to see those of us who are crossing Dempsey Mayo Road. Look at this picture showing that particular part of the sidewalk, an extension of the sidewalk. Pedestrians, golf cart users, and bicyclists are vulnerable on the sidewalk, particularly those headed north. They have their back toward vehicles approaching from behind, and that traffic is often exceeding the speed limit, as we have just mentioned. Down at center, this crosswalk is 200 feet long. From end to end, that's 2/3 of a football field. It's easy to understand why people, including me, using the crosswalk should be vulnerable. The crosswalk is located in an unacceptable position. It's dangerous. This 5-foot wide sidewalk is shared by pedestrians, golf cart users, and bicyclists traveling both directions. Again, pedestrians, cyclists headed north have their backs to the traffic, approaching them from the rear and less than 3 feet away. No curb or other barrier protects users from these vehicles. Sidewalks that serve pedestrians, golf carts, and cyclists going in opposite directions are generally referred to as multi-use paths or pathways. They have a standard width of 12 feet. This 5-foot sidewalk is a bit too narrow given its use and location. Can you see the golf cart approaching us in the slide? It's just beyond the speed limit sign. The committee questioned whether golf carts and bicycles are even legal on public roads and sidewalks. In fact, the committee found that under Florida law, golf carts are prohibited on public roads and sidewalks unless the appropriate governmental entity, Leon County in our case, first determines that golf carts can safely travel on or cross the public road or sidewalk. Speed of traffic must be included in making this determination. Because they are public roads, until Leon County formally authorizes using golf carts to cross Dempsey Mayo and within the Meandering Lane neighborhood and to drive on the sidewalk shown here, Westminster Communities faces significant related legal and potential financial risks, in our opinion. Until this fall, many of you were caught with the vehicles queuing to pick up students at W.T. Moore. Thanks to Michael Dodson, we have a couple of aerial views of the problem. As you know, they backed up, blocked our road, and as shown on the left, many drivers and residents and staff, we will not divulge who you residents were or who the staff were caught within the queue, which become impatient and cross the yellow center line into the lane of oncoming traffic, darting around vehicles waiting in the queue, using video recordings, all out in the open now. The committee documented multiple instances of near sideswipe or head-on collisions. School administrators quickly implemented and did intervene, but they implemented a solution suggested by our committee successfully solving the problem, at least for the present. Okay, based upon its findings, the committee presents 3 recommendations to the council. The first is to implement traffic calming measures that will ensure compliance with speed limits. Although controlling speed does not fully address all of the issues affecting Dempsey Mayo traffic safety, excessive speed, as you have seen, greatly impacts every single issue. Walter McNeil, our sheriff, was here last February. Many of you heard him. He stated that he is devoting his resources to highest priorities, and that's controlling crime and violence. Traffic issues, including enforcement of special speed limits, are not among his office's highest priorities. The sheriff acknowledged that enforcing speed limits is effective when deputies are visibly present. But if we cannot have the deputies present, then speed can be controlled by design features of the road. This brings up the committee's second recommendation: improve the safety of the crosswalks. In part, this would involve the use of a well-established measure known as raised crosswalks. Here is an example of a raised crosswalk. A raised crosswalk is a crosswalk that has been raised above the level of the roadway, usually to the level of the sidewalk. On both sides of the crosswalk, ramps bring the roadway up to the level of the crosswalk. If you brought your binoculars with you, maybe you can see, looking at the far curve in this visual, you can see where between the 2 arrows, you can see the ramp raising the roadway up to the level of the sidewalk. The reverse happens on the other side. The ramps are gentle and are engineered to be comfortable for vehicles at or below the posted 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, but definitely not at significantly higher speeds. With the elevated crossing, pedestrians are more prominent in the driver's field of vision. Motorists are apt to yield to pedestrians on a raised crosswalk, significantly reducing pedestrian crashes, as statistics clearly point out. Unlike speed humps that are presently used on roads inside Westminster Oaks and elsewhere, raised crosswalks have a wide, flat area between the up and down ramp. Because of this wide, flat area, commercial vehicles, and that includes vehicles important to our community, ambulances, fire trucks, and Westminster Oaks buses, will more easily pass over them. We recommend that raised crosswalks be installed at the present crosswalks leading to Meandering Lane and Emerald Chase, and with the support of Leon County schools, we recommend the same at the W.T. Moore Elementary School crosswalk. What do they accomplish? They help us achieve 2 of our goals: reduce speed to the posted limit and improve crosswalk safety. Recall that the crosswalk you're looking at now is long and dangerous. It must be relocated further away from Dempsey Mayo Road. We recommend that it be moved to the location shown in this drawing. That's the green line. Look to the right of the dark line in the middle. That's the sign, the Westminster Oaks sign, and the flagpole is the little dot near the sign. It will be replaced by 2 crosswalks, short ones. They would be raised. The green line shows the pedestrian path between Emerald Chase and the main campus. Golf carts would also use this relocated crosswalk, their paths being shown by the blue line. Crosswalks and associated sidewalks would be 12 feet wide and able to accommodate pedestrians and golf carts traveling in opposite directions. As shown in the drawing for this drawing, golf carts going to and from Meandering Lane would use the crosswalk crossing signals rather than the roadway. Much safer, much safer. Finally, we recommend that the width of the sidewalk adjacent to Dempsey Mayo Road be increased to 12 feet, and that it, as well as Meandering Lane, be authorized for golf cart use. This concludes the summary of our committee's report. I direct your attention to the full report if any of these figures and graphs interest you. Thank you.
Can we hear a community wow? Wow. Just wonderful. I think you can see why we got the attention of local officials. And we will be meeting in the next week or so with the county administrator, with the chair of the county commission, and with individual commissioners. And so at this time, I would like a motion from the council that we agree to move this report forward so that it will be available to release to the members that we'll be meeting with.
Second.
Moved by Jim Melton and seconded by Lanny. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. And thank you. Just a wonderful, wonderful job that you all have done. The whole, you see how we don't have a problem with the pick up and drop off at the school, and that was strictly the work and the wisdom of this committee. So thank you again. We're now going to move to discussion of the ad valorem taxes and fee increases. As you will recall, we did not have the statutorily required quarterly meeting prior to allow for resident input prior to when the board would be voting on the budget. As you learned from the property tax appraiser's presentation earlier, he is just the first step. There's so much that we need to know, and it is still not clear from the information we have received from Westminster communities exactly how and why our taxes are what they are. As to the fee increase anticipated in next year's budget, questions also remain. And first and foremost is the issue that this community, as I said, didn't have a quarterly meeting. Before we open it up, what I would like to do, because I don't think we all want to be here the rest of the afternoon, is I want to open the floor up and so that you can make your comments, ask your questions that are unclear to you. This will be recorded. And what the council then will do is take that information and then we will have the ability to sit down and clearly define and describe to those in Westminster management why we don't understand what was on the tax papers that we received. But before we open it up, I'd like to first call on Janet Ferris to give brief comments based on her review of the state law requiring a meeting prior to any increase in the monthly maintenance fee. And after Janet is Richard Corbett here? Oh, good, way over, okay. I'll ask Richard, as chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, to give his conclusions based on his review of the proposed budget and fee increases. Janet?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janet Ferris. I'm a seasoned resident now because I've been here 1 year and 1 week, so I feel really settled in. I am a retired public servant, and the last 11 years of my career I was a circuit judge for the 2nd Judicial Circuit, which is headquartered in Leon County. I'm very happy to be at Westminster Oaks due to our lovely home on Carefree Cove. But due even more to the wonderful people that we've met, and like all of you, the wonderful people who live here. Many of you have seen me and mentioned that I am asking questions all the time of our CEO from Westminster Communities, Terry Rogers, when he was here, and also of our Executive Director, Shannon Sauls. And I want to tell you why I did that. Living in a continuing care retirement community is a very unique experience, largely due to the statutes that have been passed by the Florida legislature to protect the substantial financial investment that we've all made in our community through entrance fees and also through our monthly fees. The legislature has recognized that unique situation and enacted detailed laws that respect that financial investment, but also recognize the need, most of all, for the residents of CCRCs to be heard. Most important to residents are provisions in Chapter 651. I want you all to go and read them. Chapter 651, 081 creates residence councils, and we have the most wonderful residence council. Chapter 651, 083, now this is really important for you to know, defines the rights of CCRC residents. So we have our own Bill of Rights, which is pretty inspirational when you think of it. I think there was a great interest in the legislature in creating something statutorily that says residents in CCRCs do have special rights, and they, most importantly, have the right to be heard by management. The last statute I want to mention today was it's 651-085, and that specifically deals with quarterly meetings. Now, needless to say, because I have a little bit of time on my hand nowadays, when the issue of residents' rights and quarterly meetings came up, I got my little statute book out, and I was kind of surprised to see that the quarterly meetings did not appear to be honored either by our, as everyone calls it, Orlando, with a capital O, or our local management. And I was distressed by that because the quarterly meetings are essential to issues like fee increases. One of the ways that residents also learn of changes in policies, and that was the question I asked Mr. Rogers, was when a quarterly meeting is held. One of the purposes of the quarterly meetings is to discuss policy changes as well. I think I just, ooh, no more cars. The quarterly meetings are not what we know at Westminster as town halls. They are different, and they are held just 4 times a year. There are 4 meetings, and they are held actually technically by the governing body, which is the provider, which is Westminster Communities. The purpose of these meetings, and you all will be shocked and amazed, is free discussion, that's a quote from the statute, about, among other things, income, expenditures, and financial trends and policies as they apply to the facility, which is Westminster Oaks. So there are 2 concepts, the provider, which is Westminster Communities, and the facility, which is us. These discussions also include the proposed changes in policies, and then I'll talk in just a second about the monthly fees. There are special provisions in the statute for discussions of proposed increases in monthly fees. Before monthly fees can be implemented, a summary of the reasons for raising the fee must be provided in writing to the Residence Council Chair. The Residence Council Chair can then ask that a representative of Westminster Communities, such as a board member, or any other representative, attend the quarterly meetings where the fee increases will be discussed. The reasons must be framed by department cost centers, so it's not just a generic discussion or general discussion about the increase, and the increases also are sort of tied to the consumer price index. So all that information has to be provided to the Resident Council Chair as a prelude to the quarterly meeting. And then all of us have to be given 7 days advance notice of the quarterly meeting. Agendas have to be drafted and made available to residents. That's a detailed agenda, and must be posted with any materials that are to be distributed, particularly if they are in regard to the fee increase. Fee increases must be discussed at a quarterly meeting before the proposed implementation of that increase. So if the understanding is that there's supposed to be a fee increase on April 1st, the last time for that to be discussed at a quarterly meeting would have been the January 2nd meeting. In regard to that meeting that was held on January 2nd, which was identified in some general memoranda by our executive director, Shannon Sauls, it was identified as a required quarterly meeting, but no agenda was posted in a conspicuous place, which is what the statute requires. And the agenda was not made available to residents who had inquired about the quarterly meeting. In fact, our executive director in the town hall indicated that she considered the town halls to be like quarterly meetings, which in my opinion is not supported in the statute. There's nothing that suggests that you can substitute one for the other, and although we certainly enjoy getting information from our executive director in the town halls, the quarterly meetings are different. In addition, whether Westminster Oaks or Westminster Communities has prepared or distributed a budget is irrelevant. They can have wonderful meetings or confabs to discuss their budget, but if the budget is based on a contemplated fee increase, the quarterly meeting has to be held before the fee increase goes into effect. If the plan is also to implement the monthly increase on on April 1st, then that January 2nd meeting would have been the last opportunity to discuss it. So these are statutory requirements. These are not things that Janet made up or anybody else. If the notices are properly made, with the fee increase detailed and a full explanation of why the increase is needed, and the meeting is properly held, Westminster Oaks would have considerable latitude, most likely, in deciding whether or not to implement the increase. But the most important thing about that, in my opinion, is that the people who live here, all of us and our friends and neighbors, have the right to be heard. And part of that right to be heard may also lead to providing management here and in Orlando with important information about the current state of services received by residents, and even constructive proposals about how to fix systems that are not functioning properly. It's a positive way to inform management, and it's also a positive way to seek change. So few people really, really want to be adversarial, and I don't either. And I think the idea that if questions are asked, that's sort of adversarial, I hope you all don't agree with that. At the least, my opinion is that Westminster Communities and Westminster Oaks should respect the law, respect our very talented and accomplished residents here at Westminster Oaks, and welcome discussion. And I hope that will happen. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Marjorie. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield, and you've let me comment after Bob Hope got finished. As the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, I can tell you that I am eminently familiar with 651. My academic specialty was insurance contracts, and I do read fine print. I think part of our problem, and I couldn't hope to identify the problem, part of our problem is this lack of transparency. The budget philosophy of Westminster Communities, I think, is completely sound. The promise they make is that your front-end fees go for capital projects and redevelopment projects, and that none of your monthly fees would go for those things. Your monthly fees would go for current expenses. I have seen some of the budget documents that are being considered. I find it irritating that they use ranges and not numbers. So the suggested fee increase is 6% to 10%. That's a long way. It's like trying to guess what your property tax should be. It's hard for me, and I expect for some of you, to know how to budget for what I should take out of my retirement account when they don't give me the number. Financial trends, my committee reported to the resident council at our last meeting that we fully believe, based on the statements required by the Office of Insurance Regulation, that Presbyterian retirement communities, DBA, Westminster, I got it. One of them's DBA, one of them's the other one. They are operating on a financially sound basis. But they make it real hard for us to know that. Marjorie characterized them as how did you say that? They want us to know that how we think they should be doing things, or something like, anyway, I think there's a lack of respect. I think they take us for granted. I think they think of us as little old people, and we're not. We marched in the streets. And I want to be behind the ladies who were marching with the now signs. Okay, I have no other comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions, but let me do that after Ms. Turnbull finishes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I didn't know that I'd ever said anything quotable before, so kind of impressed. We're now going to open up the floor, and if you would be brief, you can see the clock. Usually we're out of here in an hour, and we as a council are willing to stay as long as you want. But what we're wanting to do is get on the record your questions, your issues. So it's not your personal situation, but how the problems that have arisen as a result of your situation. So if you would, and we have two people who have agreed to be, Mike?
Ms. Marjorie, I'd like to start with asking Richard a question.
Oh, we've got one. Okay. Yes.
About cost centers. In Ms. Shannon's letter, she addressed labor and raw food.
Yes.
But that doesn't appear to me to be a cost center. Cost center is a segment of this organization that has its own budget, like maintenance and housekeeping and dining. Is that correct?
That's correct. I agree with you, yes.
Give him the mic if you would.
I got it.
Oh.
Just speak into it, there we go. That's correct, Lanny. And the numbers in the reports that go to the Office of Insurance Regulation are not presented that way. That is a standardized form, and you couldn't detect any cost centers from those numbers.
Thank you.
Hewell Wheeler. Marjorie, I was wondering.
Hold it right up.
Here, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I was wondering if there are any punitive measures in the statutes for the position we find ourselves in with Westminster Oaks, to wit, they have not held required meetings. Is there any punitive measures in the statutes that can be used to help us?
They're not punitive, but there is the opportunity to go to mediation with the Office of Insurance Regulation.
Marjorie, my question would be, what do we do next?
Well,
The time has passed. That was supposed to be January, the 1st of January. So what do we do now?
I'm going to answer that quickly because I'm not going to give a full report on the North Florida Regional Meeting for interest of time, but I will tell you this. There are 3 CCRCs in the North Florida region. 2 of them did have an opportunity to review, to have a quarterly meeting. And they came out in opposition clearly to the fee increases. I said that unfortunately we had not had the opportunity to have a community, a quarterly meeting, and that because of the confusion that we were told that we couldn't see the numbers before the board voted on the budget. And so, if you recall it, we had a quarterly meeting announced and it was canceled at the time of the supposed meeting. So I said I couldn't speak for our council. Because of the strong statements made at that meeting, the 3 members who are from Tallahassee that sit on that council, to a person said they were concerned that the views of the residents had not been taken into consideration, and made a very strong statement that should go forward to the board meeting on the 26th. So we do have in the board members in this area that represent us an understanding of what we're up against, which I think bodes well for the future. It may not bode well for the present, but I think it bodes well for the future.
I'd like to request, I know that Hank has come and spoken with the Finance Committee and perhaps with the council, but I think it would be useful in terms of transparency for him to come and explain the procedure he uses in developing both our property taxes and the fee increases. Thank you.
Related to that comment, Hank Keith sent an email to both me and Shannon Sauls the day after the town hall meeting. In that letter, he stated that we, along with 131 other residents, would be receiving a credit of $377. I would like to know how he came up with the $377 and why 131 people all got the same amount, even though we all probably got different tax bills.
I know there were some of you who didn't get your questions in the earlier session, so say them now so we'll have them on the record. Oh.
Are we going to be able to have some information? Are we going to be able to get some information from the whoever it is that does the taxes for us? I mean, in Westminster, because apparently this subdivision of the 49 whatever is done in Westminster, not by the tax appraiser. So we need somebody to come and explain what they're doing and why.
Absolutely, and that is the goal of the council, that we will have something in writing clearly explaining how our taxes are assessed.
I have a question about who is required to attend the quarterly meetings. Shannon made the comment at the last town hall that she was employed by Orlando and does not work for Westminster Oaks. Would she therefore be considered the representative from Westminster Properties at our quarterly meetings, or are we entitled to someone come up from the board to speak to us?
Yes, under the law, the Residents' Council president can request that someone from the board or someone other than someone here be asked to come to the meeting. Is that correct, Janet? That's pretty clear. Good question. Any other questions?
With respect to the tax refunds that some people have gotten, is there going to be a notice sent out to the rest of us that all refunds have been issued that are going to be issued, and for those of us that are not, or if we're not, why? Yeah, how did that calculation come about?
Good question, yeah. So the question is, why did some people get refunds and some did not? And that is not clear. Yeah.
I have two comments about the refunds. Shannon made it pretty clear at the last meeting that those people who came and asked about their tax amounts would be considered. And if you didn't go and ask for it, obviously you didn't want one. But that's what she said.
I think there's sufficient confusion to suggest that that is not the way to resolve it, yeah.
The other comment is about the ad valorem taxes also. After the meeting, I asked Mr. Yakanemi if Westminster Oaks qualified for the 10% cap. He said yes.
Yes.
So I find it very unusual and puzzling that many of us are getting 11, 12, or even higher increases. And some are even getting decreases.
Well, just to follow up on that, our first bill went up 25%. So you can imagine that I was not very happy with that. And I'm one of the 377 people. And when I walked in there and she looked us up, she said, oh, you'll be getting a credit. So apparently maybe some of the other 377s were in the 25% increase bracket, but I imagine not everyone was. And I will say that neighbors talk to each other. And within our neighborhood, it's all over the board, from gone down to 0 to most of us are probably sitting around 10, 11, 12%, but it is certainly not consistent and there is no way to figure out what it should be.
Yours were 25%?
One of the things that I think we need to understand, we got a glimpse on the presentation that was made about some of the things that are required by those people in Orlando to do. What are the processes by where they are held accountable, where they are evaluated? Are they acting in accordance with the statutes? I served a term on the FLICRA board, and the FLICRA organization got into some discussions of the state statutes. And I looked at it and I said, wow, do I really want to try to fully understand that? And within our organization here, we're putting our trust in some of our folks, and we're beginning to see the need to fully understand. We talk about who's required to attend these meetings, who's required to give us the information, what information are we entitled to. And it's going to be a while, folks, before we get that all straightened out, because understanding that state statute, it takes time and it takes effort and it takes diligence to figure that out.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have kept, those of you who have sent me information about your individual situation, I have kept them and compiled them, and those will be part of all of this that we put together. But I think you can see that there really is concern, the impact on our individual quality of life. This is not the only increase we're seeing. We're seeing our auto insurance go up. We're seeing Medicare go up. And so all of this combined, I asked the question at the North Regional meeting that they gave us a PowerPoint that showed the kinds of things they consider, stewardship good financial practice, et cetera. And I said, do you, in your conversations within management, talk about the impact on the individual resident and our quality of life? The response I got was somewhat unsettling, because it was that perhaps because costs were going up, the hourly rate has been raised, and I think we all understand that because we're in competition with other areas for the same employees. But that if we did not consider that impact on the individual, that they would possibly have to reduce services. And I then did ask, would that mean that all of our contracts would have to be renegotiated? So I'm going to give you a little homework. I want you to go home tonight and read your contract and become familiar with the kinds of information that is you have signed that you will be provided. That's a first step in all of this process. And I also, read these laws. They're not that complicated. I mean, we're just talking about sections of the statutes. We're not talking about a tome. But it is useful to get a feel for what is there. We are not without power. We are not without influence. And when we, for example, have a local elected official here, we are have the highest turnout of any precinct in Leon County. They like to come see us. They like to hear what we have to say. So I'm not discouraged. There's still a lot of confusion, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. And the final point is the importance of resident input and decisions in Orlando. I think right now there's somewhat of a feeling that that's inconvenient for management. But we can be so helpful. We can save them from so many unintended consequences. And we only have to look at the issue of the gatehouse in the past to know that had they asked us, they could have saved themselves, well, they ended up saving themselves $500,000. So there's a value to resident input that we have. The hour's getting late, and I know you all are anxious to get going. I just want to announce that the Residents' Council for February, there's another national holiday. I don't know how they select these national holidays. I don't think they deliberately look at our schedule and put them on but anyway, so we will be meeting on the 27th. And Walter, what is the date of the next forum meeting?
February 2nd, Thursday of next week.
And it's Daryl's. Quickly. You'll have to read all of that.
Next Thursday, February 2nd, the forum will present Daryl Tooks, Director of Music Industry Studies at Florida A&M University. Here is his title, Tallahassee Through the Eyes of a Boy, Coming of Age in the Capital of the Sunshine State during the time of legal segregation, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Jim Crow era.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience, your input, your knowledge, the experience you share. Stay with us. We're going to work this out. It's going to happen. It just may take a little time. Thank you.